Apologetics is, well, you can call it a pre-evangelism. God using your well-reasoned answer as a springboard or opportunity to share the grace and truth and life that only Jesus Christ can bring to the human heart. But it's also post-evangelism, and I want to underscore that for just a moment, Frank, because I call it post-evangelism in the sense that in a world in which so many things go wrong, often the swirling winds and waves of doubt beat upon the house of our faith. And so I call apologetics a pillar and a post that we can cling to in the midst of the storm. We can always go back to the reality that God created the universe, that Jesus Christ is God, and that the Bible is a reliable authority. So when doubts come into the mind of even Christians during trauma, they can go back and cling to those posts.
Yes, and the time to build a strong house is before the storm arises. And that's what we do. I mean, you may be cruising through life right now, you're a Christian, everything's going fine, and you have no doubts that God exists, that Jesus rose from the dead, that the Bible is true, that Christianity is true. But then something happens in your life, whether it's an argument that comes your way, or it's a crisis that comes your way, which you should expect if you're a Christian, but paradoxically, many Christians don't expect it. They expect everything to go well for them. Whatever it is, you need to be grounded in the truth and know why it's the truth. Not just have this superficial kind of emotional feel that God exists. Because a lot of kids, I'll tell you, go off to college with nothing but feel-good emotionalism. And when they run into a college professor who is bent on atheism, and he gives what seems like good arguments against Christianity, they're left defenseless, Hank. I mean, somebody put it this way: the easiest way to get picked off in a war is to not know you're in one. And many Christians run off to college not knowing they're in a war, or just go out into society not knowing they're in a war, and then something happens and they're left defenseless.
We're talking about UNC Charlotte at Chapel Hill. I mean, UNC Chapel Hill. Professor Bart Ehrman.
Yes.
He has become world famous. He's developed a cottage industry, writing books about how the Bible is filled with not only errors but intentional lies, as he puts it. But he's particularly proud of doing the very thing that you're alluding to, and that is causing the faith of many of his students to waver. He says, and I'll quote him, he says, "Some students resist for a long time, secure in their knowledge that God would not allow any falsehoods into a sacred book, but before long, as students see more and more of the evidence, many of them find that their faith in the trustworthiness of Scripture begins to waver." His contention is, in the end, most, if not all, evangelical students walk away from the faith.
Yeah, they do, and he's trying to make them do that. But I found, Hank, it's not just intellectual reasons. Quite frequently when people go off to college, there's a number of factors that conspire against belief in God. You go off to college, you don't want to do everything your parents said. You see the opposite sex for the first time, you're independent, you want to do your own thing. You don't want to be seen as the Bible thumper on campus, right? You want to fit in with everybody else. And so there's a number of emotional or moral factors that conspire against belief in God. The young woman you mentioned in the beginning of the program that I mentioned in the book, who left the faith after just 4 weeks of going to UNC Chapel Hill, do you think in 4 weeks she evaluated every argument for and against Christianity and made a rational decision it was false? No way. There's no way to do that in that period of time. I submit to you there was something else going on. See, most people are not on a truth quest or on a happiness quest. They're going to believe whatever they think is going to make them happy. And quite frequently, the elephant in the room on a college campus I found, in fact, I said this the other night at Chapel Hill, the elephant in the room is not evidence. The elephant in the room is morality and accountability. People don't want it.